to our webinar, Licensing for the Retail Industry. My name is Anu Shaw and I will be your moderator. Joining us today are Dan Obald and John Patone. Dan is a business license engineer at CSC and has been with the company since 2012. He consults with customers on their current license portfolios and works with them to ensure easier compliance and greater efficiency. John is a corporate solutions manager at CSC. He has been with the company for 4 years, and as a former small business owner, he owns the complexity of licensing firsthand. And with that, let's welcome Dan and John.
Good afternoon. Thanks for affording us some time, folks, today. We certainly appreciate everyone carving out a little time in their busy day to talk about licensing, which, as pathetic as this will probably sound, Dan and I get a little excited about. So we'll be with you today. We have a great amount of folks who've joined us, so there'll be times throughout that we'll have an opportunity for poll questions and things like that. So we'd like to try to make this as interactive as we can. At any time, your questions, you can shoot them over, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And if we can't get them live, we'll certainly follow up with you. Okay? So a little bit about today's agenda. We certainly want to tell you a little bit about CSC. We'll cover the consequences of non-compliance. Let's identify what a business license is, what a permit is, the challenges folks have, what they face out there day to day, how CSC can help, and as I just alluded to, hopefully with some extra time, some questions and answers. Little session, okay? CSC is a privately held company, been around for more than 115 years, and we are located in Wilmington, Delaware. Okay, CSC has offices in North America, Europe, and the Asia-Pac region, and employs over 2,000 people worldwide. Security, always a concern for our clients. We are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. We are a service provider for 90% of the Fortune 500 for one of our services. The average tenure of our service representatives is 10.5 years. And this brings us to our next slide, which is consequences of noncompliance. We thought we would maybe switch things up if you had the opportunity to attend any of our previous webinars. This section is usually a little later, but feedback has been such that folks have asked us to move this up to the front of the presentation, so we elected to do that today. So we'll start off with, again, consequences of noncompliance, and there could be no better time to introduce my colleague, our own BL subject matter expert, Mr. Dan Obald.
Well, thank you very much, John. I think this topic, specifically when it comes to licensing, is very important for our customers because when you look at licensing, it's one of the last things a lot of customers get in place for their businesses, or one of the hardest things to understand what your requirements are for the business. So I hear it day in, day out from customers, it's a business license. Why should I worry? What are some consequences associated with missing a filing, not obtaining one, operating without one, and what if I just don't know? So what we've seen, and you and I specifically worked with a lot of customers, and one of the major things is having your location being shut down. What we see with some customers is that in the event that you are operating without a business, that local auditor can come up and shut your doors because you're non-compliant with those laws and legislations in your specific location. This could lead to you lost revenue for that day, your employees lost time on the clock, and really hurt your brand reputation. The next area that we're going to look into is fines and penalties. I think this is one of the biggest things that we see for our customers that come to us after the fact is the fines and penalties associated with not having licenses in place. There's a couple different things that we tell customers that you can expect. Some jurisdictions may just have a flat, small fee that you have to pay associated with missing a renewal. Some customers have come to us and said, hey, we've been operating here for 5 years without a license. We just went and applied for one. Unfortunately, we had to cover all the fees for that 5 years plus interest for the fines and penalties for doing business without a license. And then it could be anywhere from, how long have you missed your renewal, that amount of time, times a percentage rate. So I would say this is the biggest one that we see with customers is that fines and penalties with missing these renewals or filings.
So Dan, when fines and penalties, and for folks, CSC assists in all different types of licensing, right, for all different industries and verticals. Of course, today we're focusing on retail. I think it's especially important to note that fines and penalties for retail can certainly be different. As Dan mentioned, there can be a number of reasons and escalation points when folks are getting fined or penalties. But in retail, it's often common for these licenses to have a gross revenue attachment. And because of that, in a mill rate, depending on the type of business you're running and the volume of your sales, this can add up pretty quickly.
Absolutely, and especially if it's a long period of time. You know, most of Florida is based off of gross receipts. California is another big one. I believe North Carolina is another one where we see a lot of licenses based off of your gross receipts. You know, everybody's looking for a cut of that business, and especially those local jurisdictions.
So keep in mind, folks, quite important if gosh forbid, your license expired, or maybe you missed one, believe it or not. We run into folks who have been open for several years and somehow have gotten away up to that point with actually not having their license. And once the jurisdiction finds this out, again, that formula, if you will, that they used on those gross revenue receipts number will be compounded and can be quite significant.
Lawsuits is another one that we've seen frequently with customers, is when they engage customers for selling certain things, they don't have a proper license to do that, and that could in turn to leading to consumers filing lawsuits against that business for not having that license in place, and lawsuits from the governing jurisdictions as well. So definitely something as well to be aware of.
So it's we've unfortunately had clients, it's a quick way to lose a lawsuit when it starts off at a jump street with a loophole, if you will, of you're not properly licensed.
Exactly. And the next one, and one of the biggest ones that a lot of people don't think about, is the idea of arrest. Again, these are laws that you have to follow, ordinances to obtain these licenses, and there are these severe penalties or consequences associated with it. You know, John, we worked with a customer at a retail location where they called us the day after one of their managers got arrested because that manager was the one listed as the responsible person for that license. So, you know, are you putting your employees at risk for being non-compliant as well?
Okay, and Dan mentioned, and that's actually a true story because it did happen and we were both involved with the scenario. You can Google at any time and find all kinds of horrific non-compliant stories that are out there, from all the examples Dan just mentioned, from folks getting sued, from stores getting shut down, from, in a very extreme case, an arrest. And not to paint a scare picture for you, but an arrest isn't step one. That's an escalation point over time. That particular situation, that jurisdiction had made many, many, many attempts and notifications trying to get this this store back in compliance, and gave them many, many opportunities. And depending on that particular, let's say, process that company was handling, decentralized licensing responsibilities and notifications weren't flowing back to the people that they needed to, and et cetera, and it came, eventually the jurisdiction had enough and did arrest the manager. And it was quite a call the next day that we received. We're going to take a quick break here and take care of our first poll of the day.
So everybody, we have a question on the screen for you. Have you ever received a penalty for missing a filing or being out of compliance? If you could make your selections, please, we appreciate it. All right, thank you to all that participated. So we had about 50% select 2 to 5 times, and 50% say never. Is that what you expected to see?
For a lot of customers, it's probably where we'll see either they have had one or a lot of customers have never had one. So those who have not had a license or a license fine or penalty, that's great news, and we're always happy to hear that. So this really leads into, what is a business license? And working in the world of corporate compliance, and John, you can speak to this firsthand, we work with a lot of customers that aren't really sure what is a business license. They might say, I'm registered with the Secretary of State, I have my business license to do business in that state, or I have my Department of Revenue license. Well, it gets a little bit more granular than that. And we look outside of the Secretary of State or the Department of Revenue. So essentially a business license is a registration issued by a government agency that allows an individual or a company to conduct business within the government's geographical jurisdiction. So this would be any local city license, any county license, or any state general business license. So these are also called by many things. There's not too much consistency across the United States, so we thought we'd provide you some common types of licenses in the retail industry. One, of course, being an occupational license. They could be called a privileged tax license, a business tax receipt, which is pretty heavily used in the state of Florida, and then business registrations in general. Now, where we see some sort of a distinction as well is working with customers is what is a permit. So when we look at business licenses, that's specifically to operate your business or conduct the activity. When we talk about permits, these are registrations to operate and or maintain certain aspects of a physical building. So things such as a sign permit, a burglar and or a fire alarm permit, a weights and measures or point of sale. So a lot of times customers at registers, or if you think of the deli counter at your supermarket, they have the little stickers on there. Dumpster permits, if you have a dumpster in or behind your building. And lastly, of course, boiler or pressure vessels. So again, business licenses are specific to operating or conducting that activity, and then a permit is really specific to that building.
All right, folks, we have another poll question for you. How many licenses and permits do you manage today? We'll give you all a moment to make your selection. Thank you to all that participated. So we had about 25% say about 6 to 25, another 25%, 51 to 100, and about 50% of you said 101 or over.
Okay, folks, thank you very much for participating and getting the poll. Recapping what Dan just went over again on the what is a business license, and also as we tied into commonly, let's just say commonly required permits that we find at retail locations. It is a very, very gray area. A business license is a generic term. I mean, we can tell you, folks, out here at CSC, we kind of separated it at a high level in two silos. There's anything and everything required at the Secretary of State level over off to the left. And on the right is everything that's a requirement outside of the Secretary of State. We found that over the years, we needed to use that kind of a high-level qualifier when we're talking to our clients, because again, there's so many different verticals and industries out there, and everybody runs their office their own way as they see fit, and it's tomato, that kind of verbiage type of thing. You'd be surprised, it's not uncommon for our colleagues to spend, believe it or not, sometimes 5, 10, even 15 minutes going over with clients to make sure we're talking about the right quote-unquote thing or license and things of that nature. So we are very tuned into that. We appreciate how, again, gray an area licensing is. We try to get up on the same page with our clients as soon as possible, and oftentimes we can do that quickly once we ask a few questions like, hi, how you guys doing today? What do you do? What's your business model or activity? And that helps us right away get some background on what we could expect that you'll be facing, and helps us focus in on the right conversation to assist each particular individual client. So again, kick things back over to our subject matter expert, Mr. Dan Ogle.
So we wanted to throw in this slide here for your retail location and opening requirements, because one of the questions we get from a lot of customers is, what are my requirements? Can you generalize this for me about kind of the things I need to check off as I go through and open up a new location? The first and foremost that I'm sure everybody is aware of is your Secretary of State registration and your qualification to do business. With customers and our customers here, we really see that's really the first step. But then what happens next? We look into things such as employer registration, unemployment tax, withholding tax, etc. Looking into state tax registrations, your Department of Revenue number, and then moving into the lower levels, if you will, going from the state to the next tier of the county or the city of licensing requirements. Things such as a general business license, if you have food at your register, prepackaged food license, any fire alarm, a certificate of occupancy. So 4 major things we tell customers, again, employer registration, tax filing, local filing, and then the miscellaneous such as, again, food, secondhand, return scanners, etc. And then, of course, the overarching, your Secretary of State registration. So what are some challenges that we see in the area of licensing? And I think this is one of the most complex subjects when you talk about corporate compliance. And that may be the reason why I enjoy it so much, is that it's a giant puzzle that we help customers put together and make it a little bit easier for them. In the United States, John, there's over 100,000 different jurisdictions and issuing offices for licenses. But what are our customers feeling? And that's kind of what we wanted to touch upon. The main one being research. So when you're going into a new location, what are my license requirements? So first thing here, where do I start? And John, we tell customers that the best thing that you can do is start on the internet. Where am I operating at? Who is governing me? The city, the county, the state? Calling them and figuring out what's online. We tell customers this all the time. Will our products and services require unique licenses? The simple answer is yes. The food industry is the biggest one out there. If you're selling food in any sort of way, there's most likely a license that's going to govern you. And as we go through kind of, the life cycle of a business, we always suggest every couple of years or every so often, resetting and really defining what your products are to see if anything has changed since you originally did this research. And then lastly, of course, the biggest one, what governing authorities regulate my business? So when you look at licensing, it's really a location by location, address by address requirement so that you can know, am I in the city limits? Am I in the unincorporated area of the county? Do both of them govern me? Who's my state that governs me as well?
So Dan, before we kick it over to our next poll question, you mentioned research, and I just want to kind of spend a moment digging a little deeper in this right now. It is obviously a great place to start. You used an example of opening a new location. Research, and you start on the internet, and as folks can see on the slide, it says, I saw it online, it must be true. We recommend that as a great starting point. However, as the slide says, that is not necessarily, gospel, if you will, if you just saw it online. It's a great place to start. It certainly matters what site you're on or where you're finding this information. But, and Dan will confirm this, our team here, and it's always recommended to follow up with a call. Talk to someone, because things change. Websites aren't always updated. And at the end of the day, the responsibility to have the correct licensure in place is always going to be on the business owner.
That is correct. I think that's one of the most big pain points that we hear from the customers is that nobody's out there to help me, nobody's there to point me in the right direction. Well, there is, and that's where we come into play to help customers, because the governing jurisdictions, they can be sticklers and not want to point you in the right direction.
So if you're going to try this and tackle it on your own, start online, but make sure you pick up a phone, get somebody live in a jurisdiction in question, and you may have to go to someone at the state, county, and again, the local levels, but make sure you're talking to somebody, confirm what you've seen online.
Correct.
And have that conversation to see, as you use a great word, miscellaneous type licenses. Once you're able to vet that out with someone live, you'll find out if, again, well, oh, I was selling bottled water and candy bars at my register, who would have known, but I needed a license.
Yep.
So live conversation is very important for the folks that are going to tackle this on their own.
Very good. So folks, we have another question on the screen for you. What's your biggest challenge with research? Give you all a moment to make your selections. Thank you. Thank you to all that participated. It was an overwhelming response to finding time to uncover my requirements. Is that what you expected?
That's actually kind of what I did expect to see. A lot of customers come to us and say, I'm responsible days in, days out. All this stuff's coming across my desk. I don't have time to deal with uncovering licensing requirements, and which is true. People are very busy. There's a lot of things going on in running a business where maybe licensing requirements isn't at the top of their list.
If they don't have thousands of licenses or several hundred, they're probably, it's not anyone's quote-unquote job.
Correct.
They're wearing other hats. So we find, in fact, we have many clients who do have, let's say, retail. Again, we're in retail today, so a retail and national footprint, okay? Folks that may have upwards of 2,000 plus locations nationally, they have departments and teams, but they still use someone like CSC to do their research because that's not in their daily plan. You know, they've got their team maxed out, as they always tell us. We don't have people sitting around waiting for work. They're working. So when we have to go out, we don't want them calling a jurisdiction 3, 4, 5 times, getting the right person and blah, 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 when they can be doing their normal work. So we talked about research. Let's for a moment just say you've completed your research, perhaps on your own, and you've done it successfully. You've got your evidence, Dan. It's come back. I've got my answers. So now I have a good understanding of what I need. I've got these hypothetically 3 requirements. What do I do?
Well, of course, John, you have to fill out and file those applications. And that also presents a challenge for customers because a lot of those applications might not have corresponding instruction sheets. So where do I send my license application? Do I send it to the clerk's office, the Department of Revenue? There could be 3 different P.O. boxes. Make sure you know where you're sending that because if you send it to the wrong place, you might get rejected. And just because you send it in doesn't mean they're going to be lenient for you. Again, if you're ever confused, call that jurisdiction. They'd be more than happy to point that out and assist you. The next one is, how do I check the status of my application? I hear from customers day in, day out, I should be fine. I sent that application in. That should cover me, right? Well, a lot of customers don't realize you might not be able to start business until that license is issued and approved. So if you're looking on opening a new location, make sure you're working ahead of time and you have that leeway for filing. Now, a good rule of thumb is, it could take anywhere from the same day to get turned around in a jurisdiction. It could take a week. It could take a month or more. So just make sure you're planning ahead of time when you go to make those filings.
I think around us folks here at CSC, I think the rule of thumb, and again, there is no rule of thumb when there's 160,000 jurisdictions, but when people, pin us down and make us give a guess, what I've heard you say most times is 3 to 4 weeks.
Correct. That is a good average for how long it takes for, again, across the country for that average turnaround time in a jurisdiction. Lastly, what are the filing costs? So again, licensing is not static and it varies greatly. We see anywhere from a flat fee to based off of the square footage of your building to your employees, your gross revenue, you name it, it can vary greatly. Again, the flat fees are pretty easy. Usually when there's a calculation based off of those variables that I talked about, it's usually a percentage rate associated with that. So, again, of course, lastly, are there expedited options available? With the Secretary of State, John, we often see that there are expedited routes to get that approved in a couple hours, maybe even 24 hours. With licensing, it's very few and far between.
We get that a lot, right? Our customers are so used to most states having expedited options for any number of transactional services. But business licenses are different.
You know, it's really at the mercy of that jurisdiction when you're trying to obtain that new license. They might have a large volume to go through before a year's is next on the pile. Very few are going to have that expedited route, but I would say probably plan on that not happening and look at that 3 to 4 week turnaround time.
It's not as common as people would think.
That's correct. You know, the only areas that you would expect to see that, which often aren't even the case, are those large metropolitan areas. You know, Chicago's pretty good about it if you need to get that turned around quickly, but once you start getting into, you know, the Midwest or those very small cities and towns, you might have to wait a little bit. It also leads into other challenges our customers have. Not even with new filings, you see the same thing with renewals. You know, I've heard from customers before I filed for my license, well, that was a year and a half ago. So don't forget about that renewal of that license, because usually they happen year over year. So first off is knowing when each governing authority requires licenses to be renewed. A great rule of thumb is annually. Could be based off of December 31st when you applied for the license every year, or some crazy licenses, we've seen them based off the license holder's birthday. Manually tracking your agencies and individual requirements, that's a big one for us. Again, licensing, and we've seen it, is kind of lower on the totem pole for importance. So just remembering of when things are coming due. With a day-to-day business and running all of that, it's easy to see tracking that one date of that renewal is easy to miss and overlook.
So Dan hits on a great point here, folks. We have conversations all the time with clients, and especially, again, in the retail vertical. You could imagine that if you were handling hazardous waste or building skyscrapers or whatever the case may be, your licensure requirements are going to be quite different.
Quite different.
Quite, a little more complex and certainly way more regulated. We do understand that on the easy, medium, or hard scale, retail's certainly in the easy scale as far as performing the actual renewal. Dan brings up the great point of, and again, with our clients most of the time, hey, we hear this all the time. Hey guys, this isn't rocket science. It's only rocket science when you forget to do it, right? So as Dan, a system, whether you're, we've found folks that are using Post-its, they're using Outlook calendars, they're using Excel.
They're waiting until it comes.
They're waiting until they get a notification. This and every, or they're using all 4 versions, maybe, at any one time. So we can't stress enough that we understand exactly what you're going through and the type of license requirements or permits you're going to face. We also realize that, again, as far as renewals go and processing this type of paperwork, if you will, an application, it's not incredibly complex, because Dan can tell you horror stories of one, some that are pages and pages and pages long and have 7 or 8 attachments to it, whether it's fingerprinting and birth certificates and copies of driver's licenses. We can go on and on. Retail, pretty easy as long as you get a system. Put a system in place and you'll be successful.
And the biggest thing that associated with that system, it doesn't have to be technology. Make sure there's somebody there backing up that person who's responsible, because they win the lottery that day. If it was me and I won $200 million, I love CSC, but there's a lot of traveling I have to do.
And your quirky little system to handle this just went out the door, didn't it?
It did. It did.
I think it's poll time.
So folks, we'd like to know, what is your biggest challenge when filing? Give you all a moment to make your selections. All right, thank you to all that participated. So, John and Dan, what we see is 75% have selected knowing when to file, and 25% say knowing what to file.
And those are probably the 2 biggest ones we were expecting to see. As John hit home, when to file is probably one of the biggest challenges. It's not something that you really think about day in, day out. And then, of course, knowing what to file, because as you come to renew every year, well, what application, what has to be submitted. On your license, definitely call that jurisdiction, pick up the phone. Most likely they'll have it on their website. Some of them might send you unique renewals to your specific business. So great thing to track that date, maybe work ahead of time and give that jurisdiction a call.
Okay, so Dan, we've covered quite a bit already in moving along in respect for time today. How can we help these folks?
Well, from all aspects. Essentially, we'll work with customers of any type and size, anywhere from mom and pop shops to people who are mid-sized, national footprint, customers with a lot of locations, to all the way up to name brand Fortune 100 customers. If you need assistance with a business license, let us know. We'll talk through it. We'll talk about ways that we can help, and we'll figure out what we can do for you. So our licensing division is a 10-year customer service specialist. You'll have a dedicated research analysis. You have a portfolio management support team. We are superior corporate and law firm knowledge and experience. We have a nationwide network of jurisdictions and contacts and resources. And I think the biggest thing to highlight about our services is that we do not outsource to a third party. The work that we do in-house here is done by CSE employees. And if you need an answer, you can probably call the account manager or the person who took your order, and they can walk over to the desk of the person who placed that order to get that information for you in real time.
So to go into a little more depth of just this slide here, folks, what this slide is referencing is our outsourcing partnership, to be clear. So this is for folks who have elected, for whatever the reason may be, to hire someone like CSC to basically be your partner, your extension of your team, your off-site licensing department. That's us. And there's a few key components that make that successful for everyone. They're just common denominators. And that's the dedicated manager who will be actively ensuring that your portfolio of licenses are in good standing, are being worked on well in advance of a renewal date, things like Dan mentioned, so that we are in touch with these jurisdictions. They're being pushed out the door on time, whatever necessary information that has to be included, gross revenue, whatever it may be. And again, it's done in a timely fashion so that we can facilitate a successful renewal. So that's number one, is that A, you'll have a dedicated individual. This is not a phone operator. This is the person who's in the trenches. You're going to have their phone number, their direct email. They're going to be very familiar with not only you, but your business, your model, your activity. You're in retail, what exactly you guys do, what you're selling, et cetera, et cetera. That individual, that's the only way they can really become an extension of your team, is to keep that person dedicated. So when you reach out, you're not calling and getting somebody, one of a bank of I don't know how many operators on the call and saying, hi, I'm Dan Obold again. Yeah, I have Dan's water ice stores, and I have 30 of them, and I need help with, you're back to square one. No, you're calling up, Dan calls John and says, hey, John, it's Dan, and off they go with the conversation. I got a question. And the second key component to a successful outsourcing partnership is the client needs to be comfortable. And to be comfortable with the fact that you're really outsourcing your licensing, which is a key component to keeping your doors open, okay? That has to happen. It's vital to your operation. So we're going to make sure you have the transparency and accountability into that with the portfolio management system that you see referenced on the slide. Dedicated individual and a secure cloud-based portal that will be customized. You're going to have 24/7 access to all your data. You're going to have images, and any item of concern will be stored here, whether it's license type, license number, expiration date, store identifier, Dan,
amount paid,
jurisdiction, who the general manager is at store 123, whatever it is. And you're going to have unlimited users to this secured cloud-based portal where all your licensing will be kept. So I just want to give a little more background there for this slide that, that's a much deeper conversation that we can have client to client about their particular needs. You know, how many states are you in? How many stores do you have? What's your internal process today? So we can customize ours so the partnership works best for you. Okay?
So we've talked a lot about, why is everything so great? How can we deliver you that expert customer service? But let's talk about the big areas that we're a part of and what we do here at CSC. So the first bucket, if you will, is the research aspect. So we work with customers with varying portfolios, different situations, and usually the first step to licensing is research. If you're opening a new location and need to know your requirements or auditing existing licenses, we can do anything from identifying, again, your initial requirements, providing you those applications, to, hey, I've already got an existing store, there's been a lot of hands in the pot, or I just took over licensing, I have no idea what we need or have. We offer services to assist to pull all this information, bring it into the surface, if you will, and into light, so that you know where your portfolio stands, where it stands, and what you still need to do moving forward. So that's really the research side of things. We'll move into kind of the next bucket is the preparation and filing. So of course you need to find out what's required or what's missing, but you need to file for those licenses. So we can absolutely assist you with new license filings, permit filings, and registrations, and renewing them year over year. And that's really coupled with, as John was speaking of earlier, our tracking and management. So our service allows you to have peace of mind and rest easy at night knowing somebody else is taking care of this. There's technology built around it. There's bells and whistles to ensure that things are being worked on a proactive model and not a reactive model. And that technology provides you the transparency into what we're doing on your behalf. So let's talk about some best practices for customers and different things that we can help you with. So of course the research side of things, send us your list of locations. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you and talk about, here are some high volume or very regulated locations and things that we need to know about your business, where we expect to see licenses or not. Once you do that, we'll talk about research questionnaires. Specifically we're talking today about the retail industry, so we'll have them send us a questionnaire that'll outline what they're doing at these specific locations. That'll then allow us to jump into our research, where we can conduct research on your behalf and again identify your new requirements, anything you might be missing, uncovering what's out there. And then, of course, moving into the preparation and filing aspect, where CSC will collect information on a filing questionnaire. We'll fill out the applications, forward fees, follow up with that filing, ensure that new license is issued. And then, of course, obtaining that new license on your behalf. Again, we're going to help you front to back, identify your requirements, file for them, and obtain that new license on your behalf. So the question is, how do you store your licenses? Here at CSC, ours is a web-based application that you can access 24/7 anywhere in the world that's customized to your licensing information, your preferences. But a lot of customers we see are working off of, as John said earlier, Post-it notes, Excel spreadsheets, calendars, reminders, people coming and knocking on their door. Again, we want to help customers get organized and bring all of that information into one centralized, secure digital filing cabinet, if you will.
Folks, we want to know, how are you tracking your licenses today? If you could make your selection on the screen, we'd appreciate it. All right, everybody on the line is currently tracking with Excel sheets.
And that's usually what we see from our customers here is that Excel data, keeping up with it. But what we see is that if somebody needs to access that, if that person's out for the day, only one person can be in there, maybe they have an old version. So, Excel's a great tool to start out with, but as you get more people involved, we can talk about different ways to gain some efficiencies.
And in-house, we alluded to this, both Dan and myself earlier in the presentation, the CSC Licensed Portfolio Management System, which is a better way to store, manage, and track your licenses. Some of the highlights, the features. Quite frankly, it's easy. The implementation is really on CSC. Our clients provide the data. We do the build-out.
And essentially, when you get your login, it's an out-of-the-box, ready-to-go system, and your data is already in there.
We handle all the training. We build it, as we mentioned, we handle the training. The data's in there, and you get support. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. So that's all included with a one small annual subscription to the portfolio management system. Okay, it's adaptable. You can have, folks can have, 50 licenses in there or 10,000. Okay, so that's, size is not an issue. Size does, a tier, if you will, it's priced on a tiered level. So that's where the pricing comes in. We get that a lot. So people want to know how much does the system cost. And to be fair to all users, it's based on your license value. So folks who, again, aren't penalized if they only have 100 licenses, they can still find value in the system. They're not going to be charged the same rate as somebody who has 3,000. Okay? There's no hardware or software. You don't have to involve your IT. I think we mentioned several times it's cloud-based. Okay? Unlimited users, which is fantastic. Okay? It's not just unlimited users. It's permission rights assignable users. So you as a super user can decide if you want folks to have read-only, read-net it, things of that nature. Okay? It's turnkey. Dan mentioned before, your data comes to us. We review it. We get your input on how you'd like it laid out, because again, it's customized, so we can't customize without your input. Then our specialists will go ahead and build this out for you. And again, the last mention here of training and support, that's included. Once we launch this, you're not on your own. We're going to be there for you moving forward. You can, there's a direct email for support, and you can also, of course, pick the phone up at any time as well.
So as John said, just recapping for you a few layers, web-based portal that you can access 24/7 anywhere in the world that you have an internet access, of course. We're going to centralize control and compliance requirements. If you have multiple locations, it provides that transparency to corporate about what's going on at each individual location. You can monitor those expiration dates, set predetermined alerts. And then lastly, and most importantly, it's going to help you prevent penalties and fees from misfiling.
Okay, so and just a side note on the system itself, it's available and internally what we call, for lack of a better word, 2 modes. Okay, so folks can buy this, purchase the system, if you will. As I mentioned, it's an annual subscription based upon your license volume. So it's budget friendly. You can purchase the subscription, we build it out, we train you, we turn it on, and then we kind of give you the keys to the car as far as you're driving at that point. You're maintaining it and you're using it as an effective tool to manage your day-to-day license requirements. That's what I like to call, my own word, self-service. It's a self-serve mode, if you will. But also, when we talked about our outsourcing partnership earlier, this is one of the key components. For folks who elect to outsource their licensing requirements to CSC, and we do the partnership, this is a key part. This is going to be in the partnership as a key tool. Again, the dedicated manager and the transparency is the portfolio management. Same system, same bells and whistles. Doesn't matter if you're using it yourself or you're part of the outsourcing partnership. It's the same build out, it's the same tool, again with the same bells and whistles.
And with the outsourcing partnership, this is where we can provide that transparency. Not like you're just throwing it over the wall and hoping CSC is taking care of it. We ensure that there's transparent information in there for our customers.
Okay, and that brings us to question and answers. We're gonna put you on hold for just a minute, which will allow us to go through some of the questions, and we'll be right back.
Thank you, Dan and John. That was great. We will now open the Q&A session. Also on the screen, we have one last question for you. What is your next step? Please click one of the options on your screen if you're interested in learning more about this service. And also, just as a reminder, you can download a copy of today's materials from the handouts box. If you'd like to see what other webinars CSE offers, click on the free education webinars link in the Join Us for More box. And now let's take some questions from the audience. Ron wrote in, can a license be shared between entities or locations?
So I think that is a great question and one we get often from customers. When they look to expand from one location, let's say they just want to open one down the street or maybe just a couple blocks over. What we see is that licenses often cannot be shared. They're either routed back to the FEIN of that entity, so if you have multiple entities, it's usually one per entity, as well as per location. So if you have, let's say, 2 locations in one city, you could find that you do need 2 licenses, one for each location.
Good deal. Saloni is asking, QuickBooks offers a similar service. Can you elaborate on the difference?
So I know, and I've heard some information about what QuickBooks offers. I can't speak directly to their services, but if you have had some interaction with them about what they do, we'd be more than happy to address, how ours stand out, what you've learned from them, and what you learned from us. What we pride ourselves on is the service and knowing that you're going to have a dedicated person here reaching out to you. If you need anything, we'll provide you that service. And it's not only just with licensing here at CSC. There's multiple aspects of corporate compliance that we can assist with outside of licensing. As John mentioned, Secretary of State filings, annual reports. We want to help centralize customers' compliance in one centralized platform and really help you with licensing as well.
I've got a question here from Tom who writes in. They have, it's a little wordy, but let me go through this. I'll paraphrase it, if you will. It says, Dan, they have they have retail locations of their own, physical locations, and it appears they have stores where they have space in other stores. Okay, so what's that about?
So it's actually funny you bring that up. So as you walk around the mall, you might see, let's say, kiosk in a department store where another brand is being sold, and it's pretty obvious that they're operating that location. So this is where we see a store within a store. Now, a lot of our customers come to us and say, hey, we're operating in this larger building. It's not our building, so the department store has the license. Well, John, I'm sorry, but a lot of those jurisdictions don't care. If you have a presence or generating some sort of revenue from that specific location within that jurisdiction's geographical limits, you most likely need a license as well. It kind of reverts back to the original question that came in sharing licenses. It usually can't be shared, and each entity operating there most likely needs a license on their own.
So in that scenario, that individual may have they're going to have less requirements, however, probably, right? They're going to have maybe one generic business license, if you will, but since they're a store operating in a store, I would say, for lack of a better word, the landlord is going to be probably the one with all the permit requirements. Correct. And things of that nature, right?
The sign permit, the alarm permit, maybe the boiler or dumpster, they're just renting that space. They don't operate the building where the permits come into play.
Okay.
Great. So Beth is asking, I have one location and I have no idea what I need. Do you work with customers my size?
Yes. Small or large, we'd love to have a conversation with you. If you have one location, let's talk about it. Let's see where you're at and see if we can't point you in the right direction. Give us a call.
Okay, great. Larry is asking, in your opinion, what are the most regulated states for business licensing?
So I would say, and working with all the states here in the U.S., including D.C., I would say the worst states or the most regulated states, I should say, would probably be Florida, Tennessee, California, D.C., of course, and then Louisiana, Alabama, those areas. I would say those are, in my opinion, the most regulated states for licensing.
Okay. You kind of touched upon this earlier, but Jim wants to know, do you offer any other services?
Oh, absolutely. And John, I'll actually pass that one to you.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to go over all the services in the 116 years that we've kind of evolved into right now, but we do have plenty. When it comes to compliance, we're a one-stop shop. So Dan, you alluded to it earlier, some of the advantages of coming here with our technology and the service, how they're married together. It's wonderful for folks, especially at high levels, folks that need to be able to go in and put their fingertips on what they need in a matter of seconds without having to go to 2 or 3 or 4 different systems or vendors, things like that. Give us a call. We'll run through the list. But if it's something that requires compliance, if it's some kind of registration, of filing, anything of that nature to conduct business, we help people do business. I'm sure we're in it. I'm sure we're in it.
Great. Well, thank you again, John and Dan, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. If we didn't get to your question, we will contact you with a response after the webinar. We hope to see you next time.